Good evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus. My name is Fahraaz Patel. I would like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us here on Hilaal TV, DSTV channel 347. Last week saw the completion of Week for Palestine. Of course, it is an annual week to commemorate the struggle for the liberation of Palestine. And of course, it's coming at a time where the genocide continues to be ramped up in Gaza. Famine has been declared in that enclave, and it's not just Gaza that is bearing the brunt. It is also the occupied West Bank that continues to suffer through the Israeli occupation forces. But around the world, solidarity groups continue to voice their support for Palestine through marches, through campaigns, through many other initiatives. So today, my panel discussion, we are going to be focusing with regards to Week for Palestine. Joining me in studio, I'd like to welcome Michia, Moncho, who is a board member for Africa for Palestine. And joining me on Zoom, I'd like to welcome Naazim Adam, who is the chairperson of the Palestine Solidarity Alliance. Naazim, I'm going to start off with you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah so much for joining us. Naazim, this week in itself, even though it's just a few days, it really has a resonance, doesn't it, when you look at the various protests that have happened, especially here in South Africa, and of course, the many that are happening across the globe.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I think all efforts are beneficial to the cause. Nothing is too small, whether it's one person standing in protest or entire group of organizations organizing programs for Week for Palestine. We know we have many different such programs throughout the year. We know that we just also came out of Israeli Apartheid Week. We know that there was another group that organized Al-Aqsa Week. So there's all these continuous efforts to promote and foster a solidarity with the Palestinian people, with human rights and for justice. I think our guest Michia would be better able to speak on the Week for Palestine, because they, as Africa for Palestine, are the initiators of the Week for Palestine. Obviously, organizations like the PSA and many others have supported, like we support all initiatives that lift the cause for human rights, justice, and challenge the inequalities that we live with. Mostly we promote the boycotts, divestments, and sanctions as our means of taking on the struggle for a better world, for changes to the inequalities and injustice that we see being perpetrated by the Israeli regime, the genocide that is unfolding on our screens. We also know that it came at a very apt time, and I want to applaud the organizers for this, because we saw that there was people do get fatigued, people do get into their daily routines of making a living, and we see that there's so many different challenges from Sudan, we see now in Kashmir, and so many other parts of the world where there's a demand for our attention, and also the focus on Gaza and on the West Bank. We forget about the West Bank, which is going through another slow genocide perpetrated by the settlers and the occupation, which is totally illegal. So there's so many of these aspects that get highlighted through the Week for Palestine. We're able to mobilize religious communities, sporting communities, business communities, and ordinary folk to come out and support the actions and initiatives to get more educated, to raise their voices against those who perpetrate the genocide and those who aid and abet it. Many of them in our country, like the famous politicians who went on an unofficial, official fact-finding mission that found no facts. So we have our work cut out in South Africa. Week for Palestine and was a great initiative, and it gave us a new momentum and a new impetus to continue with the work we need to do as activists, as human rights advocates across the globe. There's so many other things happening behind the scene. As we go through the program, we may be able to talk about some of the other initiatives.
And of course, we're just getting started. Michia, thank you so much. Good evening for joining us, of course. Michia, I was at that press conference around just close to 2 weeks ago when, of course, Week for Palestine had started. What's interesting there is that, you know, this perception that this is a sort of religious aspect. It's not. because there's so many different communities that are in Palestine, and we see that right now resembling across the world. You had pastors coming, you had priests coming. We just had, of course, Pope Francis, who had passed on, being a very vocal supporter for the people of Gaza. And that's the beauty about this, because this humanitarian crisis brings out the human in so many people.
Yes, you are correct, for us, and thank you for having us as Africa for Palestine on the show to speak about the Week for Palestine that we had. It's in its second annual year. It's true. I was having an engagement yesterday with the students from Swaziland. One of them asked a question, but I'm told what's happening in Palestine, between Palestine and Israel, it's a religious issue. I said, no. What's taking place, and we need to say it for what it is. It's the violation of international law and violation of human rights. And taking the cue from our former statesman, President Mandela, who said, we can never, and never again, shall I witness oppression of one by the other, and I keep quiet. As a young South African myself, I am a beneficiary of international solidarity. And it's important that wherever an oppression of one by the other raises its ugly head, I am there to speak up against it. Now, it's important that, because this is the discussion that we had when we were having the planning meetings for the week for Palestine. People are a bit fatigued, you know, but we are saying that as long as Palestine is liberated, we don't keep quiet. We keep on talking about Palestine. We learn from those that came before us. Your O.R. Tambo, who said, who went abroad internationally for 40 years, over 40 years. He was exiled. But he was exiled from South Africa. He went for 40 years abroad. He spoke about the atrocities that are taking place in South Africa, the apartheid, the oppression. Eventually, people listened. Now, it's upon us to do the same for the people of Palestine, because the international community also gave us that opportunity, and it's upon us to return the favor. Do you understand? It's not because of they did. It's like we're doing them a favor. No, it's because of it's the right thing to do. You know, because we all want to live in a society where it's free, just, everyone is respected,
equitable also.
Equitable. You know, that is why we are saying. But it's important also for us at the same time. Consciousness and awareness is raised at all material time, in all corners. You understand? So that we debunk this myth about the religious issue. No. That is why when we send out endorsement letters, we went far, and we didn't only focus on politics, we didn't only focus on religion, but civil society across the board. You know, so that we bring everyone, it's a call for action. You know, we won't rest until Palestinians are liberated.
Naazim, there's something important that Michia brings up that I think all of us here in the studio can say that we are beneficiaries of international solidarity, and we look at what happened in apartheid. On Friday, I had this TRC inquest. Of course, President Cyril Ramaphosa has reopened the inquest. And that's important, isn't it? Because it's our shared past that allows us to have the strengthening of the solidarity.
100% for us. We can draw a lot from the anti-apartheid movement, the internationalism that helped usher in the democratic transition in South Africa. I think there's two parts to what you're saying. And one part is that we draw from that history, and we draw from that legacy and the outstanding work that was done. At the time, obviously, people didn't see it, but it was there. And certainly in our work, we refer much to that. In fact, the entire BDS, I think, campaign and program draws strength from the anti-apartheid movement and its very strong sanctions and boycott movement that isolated apartheid South Africa, left it as a pariah, and forced the hand of the the white supremacists in our country to begin to relook at their relations with the rest of the world and with ordinary folk in the rest of the world. Because remember, even though we were doing our own resistance in the international struggle, the powers that be, the Margaret Thatchers, the Ronald Reagans of the time, they were very firmly entrenched in their support for apartheid South Africa. It was people on the ground, people like you and me and Michia and all the other activists and hundreds and thousands of people across the globe that we are seeing come out for Palestine, that's going to be our strength. So that's the first part. The second part is that we mustn't, as we take forward the international struggle for human rights and justice, and against the apartheid settler colonial state, which is Israel, we cannot forget that there are also many injustices and many unresolved matters within our country that need our attention as well. So you will find this kind of intersectional work of human rights advocacy and campaigning and challenging the legacies of apartheid in our own country, whether it's the land issue, whether it's the very biased liberal agenda that wants to keep the status quo, and I say liberally because they're far more conservative than we think. We saw that in their reports to Donald Trump, So we have battles on our own front that go part and parcel of our struggle with Palestine. And you'll find that a lot of our activists are acutely involved in the local struggles as well.
Naazim, I have to stop you there. We have to go for a break. After we have the break, we're going to be discussing red card for Israel, a T-shirt that Michia is wearing in studio. Do stay tuned. Welcome back to News in Focus. Michia, of course, you're wearing the red card for Israel, a T-shirt. What we're seeing right now, the sense of hypocrisy that is occurring among sports bodies, of course, when the Russia-Ukraine war started, of course, Russia was banned from all sports. Of course, its athletes had to compete in the neutral flag, whether it was in tennis or the Olympics. How much of a frustration is it that Israel cannot have the same faith as Russia, given its atrocities are of the highest level that one has ever seen?
It's quite sad. It's quite sad. Hence, our theme for Week for Palestine for this year was red card to Israel. Primarily so as a message to FIFA. That, of course, like Uncle Naazim said before, that most of the campaigns that we're taking on now are informed by the anti-apartheid movement campaigns. Because one of the slogans that was there during the apartheid times was, there can't be a normal sport in an abnormal society. What's taking place in Palestine is very abnormal. And we can't have business as usual. We can't have the oppressors enjoying everywhere else in the world, yet where else they are denying others the right to enjoy the same. It can't be. That can't be. I mean, the president of FIFA was approached May last year, and he refused to deny Israel that right, to deny Israeli sport soccer. Said, no, I can't. I'll have to look into the legalities, right? But like as you've rightfully said, why didn't they look into the legalities when the Russia and Ukraine war started? I mean, the war it's 2 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But
Three
it's 3 years now. But the Palestinians have been oppressed for the past 77 years. No one is saying anything, So also looking at how the sporting codes of South Africa during apartheid were isolated. India was one of the first countries to say they're not going to play any sports in apartheid South Africa. They denied, they withdrew from the Olympics, I think in the 60s, because of that. There was an athlete I was watching a documentary of. She was interviewed. She's in her 60s now. We used to call her Zolabad.
Yes,
she was a runner.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, I watched that clip where she spoke about the the sporting coach, especially the sporting coach of South Africa, being denied. She was refused, although she qualified for the Olympics in '92. She was refused to run there because of the apartheid policies here. She felt it, you know. So it's because of that we feel that, you know what, we are saying to FIFA, we're making a call to everyone to come together, to make a call to FIFA to say, you are going to give Israeli the red card. You know, we are trying to mobilize as much as we possibly can, you know, starting with soccer, of course. And then we'll go to the sponsors of them and so forth. But what's important is that Israel feel isolated. Do you understand? It might take some time, yes, but what's important is people are talking about it and people are willing to listen. Yes.
Naazim, that isolation, it is slow. What we see, of course, is certain athletes, whether it's MMA, mixed martial arts. I think a few weeks ago there was a sporting code where I think it was the Swedish or the Swiss team turned their backs on the Israeli team. It's getting there, isn't it? But it's not as fast as one would have hoped so. What we saw in South Africa, where South African sport was completely isolated from each and every major competition.
For us, the first thing is that we must know that it wasn't an easy journey. It didn't happen overnight. And a lot of the strength came from international activists on the ground, individual athletes and so forth. And athletes have always, they've always been athletes of conscience. We know the famous Black Fist salute at the Olympics. Yes. I don't know which year it was, to protest the racism and unfair treatment of Black athletes in America. I think that for me, there's a few things, and we've been running with the sports justice campaign and the sports arts and cultural boycott. I want to say that firstly, this is a critical aspect of boycott. We are all familiar with the consumer boycotts, with some of the sanctions and things that are running, our campaigns with Glencoe and the coal to divest, with Molko. But the sports arts and culture hits differently because it is an opportunity not just to hold Israel accountable for its bloodlust and its genocide, and I like the Afrikaans word for it, volksmoord, but it's a terrible experience nevertheless, because that word covers, it's a killing of an entire people. Now, we are saying that through sports, arts, and cultures, while this is happening, while there's hunger, thirst, malnutrition, can we also then still be indulging in the excesses of sport, right? So we're saying yes, because sports plays an important part in the human social development, but it must be matched with human dignity, with human rights, with the whole concept of sportsmanship. And we also know that sports is not equal in every space. Today, money, you get better training, you get better opportunities, and so forth. So we have put together a group as the PSA under the BDS campaign for sports, arts, and culture boycott, and we're working on this broader campaign for the sports, arts, and cultural boycott. But we're seeing it more in a sports justice project, because there is so much that we can do. It opens itself to so much in terms of changing society, because ultimately, what is it that we want? We want to promote a more human society, a more just society, a more equal society, a more compassionate society, a more peaceful world. And this can only happen if we hold those who break those values, who counter those through their violent actions, murder, genocide, and so forth, who promote race hatred. We can use sport differently. And this is what was the basis of the anti-apartheid sports boycott movement, is to say we can build a better society. So yes, isolating apartheid Israel for its genocidal acts, for its continued settler colonialism, this is critical. And we need to just build on it. Just one more point.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
The interview with Donald Trump, where he said he was taken aback. He didn't know that Russia was suspended from the FIFA fraternity. But it shows that we've got a lot of work to do. That was the point I'm making, that the sports boycotts and the cultural boycotts, they hit hard because they hit you in your social space. You become embarrassed that you were isolated, you were excluded, you were banned. and then you feel a need to make a change because you're now a pariah. It's different to the economic kind of boycotts that we do. But we have to teach people. We need to take people with us on this journey. And PSA is out there. We did a fantastic campaign to hold Cricket South Africa accountable for the appointment of a promoter of genocide as a captain, and they reversed that decision. So there is power amongst the people about if we are organized, if we are together, to begin to hold those who promote and propagate apartheid, racism, and Zionism, and the genocide, and are unapologetic for the genocide that we see unfolding, the hunger and the malnutrition. They will be isolated. That's what we say. And if you want to play sport, play on equal terms with everyone else.
Yeah, without a doubt. Michia, we got 2 minutes for this. Naazim mentioned it, that young lad who, of course, dedicated his prize to the Israeli army. Immediately, Cricket South Africa had acted, of course, and of course PSA and I was one of those who brought it forward for him to be removed as the captain of the under-19 team ahead of that World Cup. That's a start, isn't it, for holding those who believe it's okay to give a thumbs up to genocide?
Exactly. Uncle Naim mentioned something very important, right? If you come together, right, we have a bigger voice, right? And if we raise more awareness, we raise more consciousness, it becomes very difficult to be manipulated as the public, right? Because we know. And we know what is wrong and what is right. But if we are like, it doesn't matter, I'm not involved there, but indirectly it does.
Sitting on the fence.
Coming together, yes. You can't, no. This is a war. In the struggle for just and fair equal world, it's war. It's either you are fighting or you are against us. This is where we are at. But you can't be sitting on the fence and saying, no, but indirectly that thing affects you. So that is why we made this call that we must come together, different civil society organizations. Let's come together. Let's see what is it that we can, because the bigger number we are, the bigger our voice and the louder our voice is going to be. And of course, when you look at sports in every society, it's something that speaks to social cohesion, right? And soccer. Every day on TV, there's soccer playing. It's one of the biggest sports in the world. That is why we want that Israeli soccer team, not even to see the World Cup, Yes, we might win, because yes, we might not win, but what's going to be important is that there is apartheid in Israel is going to be in the minds of people. That we are boycotting the Israeli team from FIFA is going to be the talking point.
Yeah, I have to stop you there, Michia, because we have to go to a break. After that, we're going to be discussing South Africa and its lead, not just for a week for Palestine, but its solidarity with the people of Palestine. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. Well, South Africa had sealed its role as a leader in the world of morality, or whatever's left of it from a moral point of view, by taking, of course, Israel to the International Court of Justice when that decision was made on December the 29th, 2023. Naazim, I want to come to you on this one. The people would say, or the globe would say, why you, South Africa? Why do you have to do it? Your response to that?
His response is the response of our president, who said that this is our moral duty. This is where we come from. We don't forget who our allies were in our own struggle. You, at some point, as a people, as a nation, as an individual, have to take a stand for justice. And we're seeing that as South Africa took that justice, the most amazing thing is that it gave impetus and it gave courage to so many others to take that firm stand. One of the things that Gaza has done is it's exposed the hypocrites. It has exposed the fence sitters. And here was an opportunity, and South Africa, I think, came out with flying colors as a government, as the ANC-led government, to take forward the struggle of the Palestinian people to the International Court of Justice, and in that expose the double standards and hypocrisy of the Western world when it comes to international law. So all hats off to South Africa. It was something that we had to do given our historical historical legacy, but also our commitment to human rights and human dignity and justice, which I think that our government in many ways is still committed to. We have a lot of problems at home, but the commitment to justice and a better world, a more humane, compassionate, and peaceful world. This is what's motivated it, and all hats off to the government for that.
Michia, only in a constitution, only in a democracy are you really allowed to have Week for Palestine, have the protests, have the voices speaking, have this medium right over here to allow the discussion on Palestine to occur. Many countries, unfortunately, don't have that same privilege that we would have. And that's the beauty of living here. We've got our challenges. There's so much more that needs to be solved. The wrongs of apartheid still need to be become right. But when it comes to the moral aspect of things, this is where South Africa can really hold its head up high, and the citizens who have that morality in them can go ahead and make their voices heard.
You are correct. Like I said, it's important that we are conscious, right? Because when you are conscious, then you know. We are beneficiaries of international solidarity as South Africans. It's because of that solidarity that we receive from others that we are where we are today. And we cannot take that for granted. We cannot not go to La La Land and forget. No, we can't. However, as much as we do have our own issues, right? What's important is that as much as, when I speak, I like to bring issues home. Let's take for an example. Your neighbor's house has been broken into. Something wrong is happening next door. Doesn't affect your yard. You see it. What then do you do? Doesn't affect me. They're not breaking into my house, so you turn a blind eye. But what happens to the thief who breaks the law? That thief is going to become bolder because people kept quiet. You saw, you kept quiet, didn't do anything. It's going to become bolder. And a few months down the line, your house is broken into, you are not home. You understand? It's because of you chose to keep quiet, although you saw something wrong that was happening next door. Yes, in your house, you've got all your issues. You can't pay rent, you are not working, you are not. But it does not say you cannot help where you see there's a problem, where you are able to help. You understand? That's how I would define international solidarity, solidarity to others. That yes, we have our own issues at home, but I cannot keep quiet when something wrong has been done next door, because indirectly it does affect me. Because if I speak out, then that one, he's not going to have that. He's going to get caught. And because if I keep quiet, he's going to continue to others. We keep quiet now, but what's taking place in Palestine to the Palestinians, right? The Zionist regime becomes bolder and bolder and bolder. Then I think the whole Middle East is a Zionist zone. The next thing, Africa is because of we chose to keep quiet when wrong was being done. So that is how I look at it and how I define it. We can't keep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Naazim, Michia brings up bolder. A couple of weeks ago, we had a bunch of bold members of parliament who decided to make a trip to Israel and its so-called fact-finding mission. I know you mentioned it in segment one, saying there's no apartheid in Israel. Now, obviously, they're part of this government of national unity, which has the African National Congress, Al-Jamaa, the Pan-African Congress, the Good Party, of course, parties that have, prior to the elections, stated their solidarity with Palestine. There's a fundamental problem here, isn't there, that when you go, and of course you are paid by a certain lobby group, that you're going to come back with only one and only one outcome, and that is, of course, not the truth of currently what's happening with genocides in Gaza and in the occupied West Bank.
Obviously, it wasn't a fact-finding mission. We can frame things in nice language. It was a propaganda mission, and I think they've been exposed for that. We need more, for us, I just want to say, like, with the sports boycott, with all that we're doing, while we may be addressing the immediate issues of the genocide, the hunger and the starvation, the injustices, let us always remember that if we want to progress truly, it's about systemic changes. So when we take on FIFA for the red card, or CAF and Patrice Motsepe, and we demand that they push for their change, like the Asian Federation did, for Israel to be isolated and expelled from all competition. We are actually changing the systems in FIFA, which are unjust. So when we challenge the political parties who still stand firmly with the colonial heritage and past of apartheid, through their stand and blind support for apartheid Israel, where no matter how they try and coax their conscience that it's their religious duty or whatever, we know that we are shifting a system and a society to become a better, bolder society that stands out and speaks for freedom, for justice, for human dignity, and for equality for all. So when we challenge these individuals and political parties, know that it's about us shifting a system that will be something that we want out, where we always wanted in our own struggle, a better world for all. And so as we do this, let's not lose sight of the ultimate goal of building a better world for all. And as much as we do that, we know that there will be agents who don't want that change, who don't want to see that out of their own selfish race privilege positions, or because they are duped, or because they are being paid for it. So because any decent human being would want a better world which is more equitable, fair, and just, that doesn't have one race group or one religious group standing as in a position of hierarchy or a position of privilege over others just because of where they come from or what religion they follow.
Michia, we got just a few minutes, I think 3 to be exact. Education becomes important, doesn't it? Campaigns like Week for Palestine, anti-apartheid week, Israeli apartheid week, I beg your pardon, Al-Quds week, there's so many. Surely there has to come a time where that education for those who still see the occupation differently from what many others would see. It has to happen. The question is when?
The question, to answer that question, we continue with what we are doing. We continue the actions that we take, public speaking, the pointing out what's wrong, the red card Israeli campaign. We need to, the world needs to see Israeli Zionist regime for what it is. And even if we're going to end up sounding like broken records at the end of the day, it's fine.
Pema Ngubane is a classic example of that.
Exactly.
She was a Christian Zionist, and all of a sudden, she's now one of the leading voices for Palestine in this country.
Exactly. Yeah. Even if at the end of the day we sound like broken records, you know, we learn from those that came before. For us, like I said, you know, I keep on going back to OR because I would love for every activist in our country to walk a mile in his footsteps. You know, when OR left the country and went into exile for 40 years, he never tired. And that's what we are going to do. We are not going to tire. We're going to continue speaking about it until someone listens, until policies are changed, but we need to increase the voice. That's why we're saying it's a call for us to come together as solidarity organizations, because when we are fragmented, then we don't make the impact that we'd love to make, right? But then OR believed in this. Yes. And then finally, but what's so sad about it is that OR never left a day in a democratic South Africa. He never left a day, but he believed in it. You understand? Because I believe in humanity. You know, I believe in humanity, and ultimately, good is going to overthrow evil. Yes. You know, if you keep quiet, and we need now, when we take our campaigns, we need to take it where it hurts the most, in the pockets, yes. where it hurts them the most. Because yes, us talking and us going on fact-funding propaganda, it's not, no, I mean, it's 2024, we are not in 1969 anymore. We all know, we all can see what's happening in Palestine. What I would very much would love for is for a unified solidarity voice in South Africa, because that unified solidarity voice urged or nudged our government to go to the ICJ because of we are up in arms in the country for Palestine.
Yes.
And then our government said, you know what, it's only right that we do this. You understand? We keep them, we remind them that we don't sleep whilst others are being oppressed. And those who helped us, you know, I don't think, I think of course Mandela where he is like,
Smiling.
He's smiling now, they're doing a good job, you know.
Definitely.
That is what we want. I mean, so until such time comes, we don't tire, we continue.
Yeah. After the break, we wrap up the conversation, this panel discussion with Michia, Moncho, and Naazim Adam. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to News in Focus. Naazim, I want to come to you. Naazim, if I know you for the longest time that I've known you, of course, I've always known you to be this man of action. You know, we've seen you in the marches. We've seen you really taking it to the streets to make sure that the voices are heard and also that people become aware of the struggles of the people of Palestine. Naazim, if there is the criticisms of the South African government, one of them, of course, and it's still sitting in Parliament, the closure of the Israeli embassy, number one, and of course, Glencoe, the fact that coal is still being supplied by Israel. That now sits as maybe two actions that need to be done by the South African government and its stakeholders. Do you think we're far or close to that actually being achieved?
Look, on both, I can't say that we have any indication that the government's going to move on that. But our campaigns have intensified. That's what I can tell you. In fact, look out for the end of this month for a major campaign against Glencoe and Africa Rainbow Minerals, Patrice Motsepe, and our government around that. I think they haven't moved on that. They haven't moved on the closing of the Israeli embassy, and we have to intensify our campaigns for that. The latest acts of genocide, the starvation and the famine that is exposed now, demands that we expel everything that is Israeli in this country, and we hold those people who promote it accountable. The third is the government has not moved, especially the NPA, on the PSA's Gaza docket, which we launched with the MRN. And we've added to that document since the initial launch of that document way back in 2010. And there are enough evidences which the NPA can pursue to hold Israelis who serve in the IDF accountable and those who promote and advocate for it. So those are the three areas I think that we have to intensify our actions. I can say to you that our government, the movement even to the ICJ, didn't happen in a vacuum or because someone woke up one day and felt we've got a conscience. This has come after decades of solidarity work and campaigning and advocacy and lobbying with government. So we need to just intensify that. We know that the Zionist lobby is pretty strong in this country, but we need to counter that at every space that we can and expose them. The good thing is they expose themselves for their support of the most inhumane atrocities that the world is seeing. They even posted on their social medias the kind of decrepit videos that we see coming out of those who are occupying Palestine. So yeah, there's a lot that we have to push the government for. Look out for the Glencoe protests that are coming up in the month of May. There's also Nakba Day on the 15th of May, so there'll be a lot of activities around that. In fact, we use Nakba Day a lot, and this year's theme is Nakba, is the ongoing Nakba. It's not an event that happened in the past in 1947, 1948. It's an ongoing Nakba. We are doing a whole series of educations with schools. We've been invited to, and that's the other thing government can move on, you know. South African youth don't even know about our own history against apartheid. So a shift in the curriculum so that South Africans understand our history, understand our land issues, and don't go and shoot their mouths off in the US. That is a sore point, but a more general systemic change that we have to make. But look out for the actions that are coming up in the month of May and June.
Something interesting that Naazim had brought up, education. And this is where, of course, it moves from understanding, having that dialogue, to taking action, to saying, well, my voice needs to be heard. I mean, when I was in high school, and I don't want to give away my age, the history that we were learned was very sugar-coated of South Africa. And one would feel it probably is the same when it comes to the occupation of Palestine. That has to change. It starts from school, filters down to adulthood. And this allows the country, South Africa, to give a proper understanding of apartheid here, the occupation in Palestine, and how this is intertwined.
You are quite correct. There's something in the political space, what they call the media and the battle of ideas, right? Sounds a bit too big, but it's really, it's not. When it comes to education, our young people have been fed all the wrong things. Social media, sometimes we go into TV, we watch things that are not wrong. And then we are told about, you hear, take 10 young people and ask them about the history of South Africa. But it's long. The thing that was many ages ago.
There's no real interest.
There's no real interest, right? But it took someone like me, right, it took me to learn about the oppression in Palestine, to get to understand and learn about my history.
Yes.
You know, so we also use the workshops, the awareness, that going to schools. We also use that to educate not only about what's taking place in Palestine, the oppression there, but what we went through under the apartheid system, of our parents went through during the apartheid, and why it can never happen to any other person. You know, why we need to stand up against it. Fun enough, our media is not telling us, right, that a week ago, there were Palestinian medical students that graduated, right, at the University of the Western Cape, you know, whose studies were cut short because of the war had started, and they had to leave. And Gift of the Givers brought them to South Africa, and they graduated, they finished their medical studies. But you won't see that in mainstream media. No, it's a feel-good story. No.
And that is a beautiful feel-good story.
That is what we spoke about when we started this interview, when we say that let's put action into the rhetoric that we, you know, it's literally supporting Palestinians in that sense that, okay, come, you are going to finish. Because what the regime is trying to do is trying to annex them. It's trying to ethnically cleanse the land of, like they don't exist, they're not human beings, but they are human beings. Because they bleed blood like me and you, you know. So that's how we literally lend our support for Palestinians, for Palestinians in this oppression that they are going through. When we don't speak about it, right? To especially, I'm from an Black African background township, right? I remember when I started, right? I was told, even in my community, no. It's a Muslim issue there. Leave it.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? But it took education.
Exactly.
Right? It took education for me to learn that no, it's not. Yes. By majority, yes, they practice the religion of Islam. But Palestinians, they are Christian Palestinians. Yes. You know, they're Jews Palestinians. Exactly. But what's important, it's what? They are human beings. Yes. Yeah, that's what's important for me. It's not the culture, it's not the religion, it's not, but it's a human being caring after another human. But it took what? Education. Yes. So I would like what I've learned to share it with others so that they can also reverse it in terms of their thinking. Say, oh, okay, I didn't see it like that. Yes. But now that you say it, but also it's important that we bring issues home at all material times. You understand? So the people are able to understand. They're not talking about something that's somewhere there in the, like a pie in the sky. No. Yes. It's something that is here that people are going through. Make an example, practical example. Yeah. That's how we support. Comrade Nomvula made a very important, at a press briefing when we were launching the week. Yes. He said that engagement with those that are in power and continuous lobbying is very important, because at some point you'll end up appealing to their soul and to their consciousness at the same time, and not think about profits at all material times. I think that's the route that we need to take. Number two, consumer boycotts. We don't speak enough about those. Yes, just in passing, you know. But there were literally people who refused to even touch an orange that came from South Africa. Yes. Do you understand? That is why I'm saying it's very important that a conscious people, it's very it's very difficult. It will be very difficult for you to deceive someone who's conscious, someone who knows. So I think we need to, another focus area there is the consumer boycott. We've
yes.
started with the Woolworths and the Olofs,
Yeah.
but I think we need to take it further.
Yes. We've got 2 minutes, so I have to give a closing argument. Naazim, just your closing argument for 1 minute, please.
The boycott movement, particularly the sports boycott campaign, has the power to harness collective action. It is about a moral influence, and historical lessons that we can draw from this can promote human rights. If and when effectively implemented, it can contribute to a more equitable, compassionate, and peaceful world. So when you don't drink Coke, and when you don't consume from McDonald's or Starbucks, or don't buy HP products, which are some of the key areas of the BDS movement's campaigns, you are actually teaching your kids, your family, your community about building a more compassionate and peaceful world. It's not just about Palestine, but it is focused on liberating Palestine. Justice, dignity, and human rights should be the core of our collective efforts, and we need to build and organize for a more equitable future through this BDS movement, a more equitable future, not just for the Palestinian people to be free and to occupy their land from the river to the sea, but for all of humanity to be able to live in a better world from all rivers to all seas. And this is our struggle, a struggle for humanity. Thank you.
Michia, your concluding remarks, 1 minute.
My concluding remarks is that ours is a call of solidarity. Ours is a call to come together, because there is, when we are unified, we are able to have a bigger voice. Ours is to never keep quiet and never get tired of speaking about Palestine until the Palestinians are liberated and they are free and their dignity is restored.
Naazim, we'd like to say Jazakallah to you for making the time for us. We really appreciate it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Fahraaz.
That's absolute pleasure. Naazim Adam, chairperson of the Palestine Solidarity Alliance.
Shukran, Uncle Naazim, huh?
Michia,
Yes.
I'd like to thank you.
I learn a bit of Arabic.
Oh, you're getting there. It's
I'm
a start.
getting
It's a start. Now, Michia, thank you so
Yes,
much for making the
it
time
was
for us.
nice.
We really, really appreciate it.
nice.
Michia, she's a board member of Africa for Palestine.
understand.
That's all we have for you here on News in Focus. From myself, Fahraaz Patel, the rest of the team in Johannesburg. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.